the eternal mystery, traces of ancient civilizations, ancient scriptures, advanced science, and yet a secretive sentence discovered only in South Korea, unique in the world. Before delving into the main text of the Cheon-Boo-Gyong, I should explain the meanings behind each number, but it seems that the explanation would become too lengthy, so I will postpone it for later. I will now proceed with the interpretation of the main text. The reason why the Cheon-Boo-Gyong remains unresolved is that we have not been able to decipher the hidden meanings behind the 10 numbers mentioned in this text. Therefore, I will first interpret the main text and try to uncover the meanings of each number. The term, the Cheon-Boo-Gyong, can be translated literally as principles of the heaven. The character Cheon represents heaven or sky. The character Bu can mean signs, laws, rules, tokens, prophecies, or symbols. And the character Gyong has meanings such as scripture, writing, path, law, or principle. In essence, it can be interpreted as a wording of the principles of the heaven. Alternatively, it can be simply translated as the principles of the heaven or the principles of the world. In this context, the principles of the heaven seems to be the most straightforward way to represent the Cheon-Boo-Gyong. Therefore, a slightly expanded interpretation could be a wording of the principles of the universe, or the principles of the cosmos. As you delve into the text, you can understand why it describes the principles of the universe, and realize that the focus of the text is not the universe or the heaven. However, the title is the Cheon-Boo-Gyong. In other words, the Cheon-Boo-Gyong undoubtedly represents the principles of the heaven or the universe, but it explains the precious result born from those principles, which is human beings. Thus, it describes how valuable humans are as a reflection of the principles of the heaven. While the core of this text lies in the preciousness of human beings, ultimately, the conclusion is that the principles of the heaven determine this preciousness. Therefore, it is natural for the title of this text to be the Cheon-Boo-Gyong, representing the principles of the heaven. There is one important point to note here. The meaning of heaven in the Cheon-Boo-Gyong does not refer to God. In this context, heaven simply represents the universe, sky, or cosmos. God does not appear throughout the Cheon-Boo-Gyong. LC-mu-CO. He means number one. Sky, universe, cosmos, space, galactic, et. C means star. Mu means nothingness. C means start. Il means number one. This text is the first sentence of Cheon-Boo-Gyong. The very first character that appears is also the number one. As it is, when interpreted, it means one begins. It starts from nothing. However, if we interpret the third sentence first, it says, the sky, or heaven, is number one, and it is number one. And the earth is number one, and it is number two. Humans are number one, and they are number three. What could this possibly mean? If we interpret it with some extrapolation, you can understand it. The sky emerges from one and carries the meaning of number one. Similarly, the earth emerges from one and carries the meaning of number two. Humans also emerge from one but come into existence as the third creation, hence carrying the meaning of number three. Let me rephrase it once more. The heaven emerged from one and was born the first, therefore, it carries the meaning of number one. And the earth also emerged from one but was created as the second in the world, thus carrying the meaning of number two. Humans also emerged from one but were created as the third, hence carrying the meaning of number three. Therefore, in the very first sentence, LC-mu-CO, the meaning of number one is represented by the heaven or the sky, which is also synonymous with the universe and simply, in an easy sense, this world. Interpreting the first sentence, Yisur Wushuri, in a more easily comprehensible way, it means This world, the universe, starts from nothingness, and its beginning is from one or a single point. Or it can be interpreted as, the beginning of this world is a world that starts from nowhere. Now, you might wonder why I specifically mentioned that the beginning starts from one point. It is precisely due to the concept of Wu-nothingness. The concept of Wu-nothingness cannot be interpreted in terms of one-dimensional, two-dimensional, or three-dimensional perspectives. One dimension represents a line, two dimensions represent a plane, and three dimensions represent a solid object. Thus, if we consider it from a dimensional perspective, the concept of a single point could be considered as a zero-dimensional concept. When discussing coordinates in space, we use x, I, and this to represent them. In other words, we express the position of a point using width, height, and depth, but the position of a single point can never have a size. Therefore, the concept of a single point exists only in terms of its position without having any form or size. Thus, it can only be regarded as Wu-nothingness. From this perspective of dimension, Wu-nothingness is a point, and a point becomes Wu-nothingness. This is the concept of Wu-nothingness presented in the Cheon-Boo-Gyong. Hence, the phrase Isur Wusuri means that this vast universe or this world starts from a single point of nothingness. This phrase might sound familiar to you, right? Yes, that's correct. It is identical to the modern scientific theory known as the Big Bang cosmology. If this text was created after understanding the cutting-edge science of this era, such as the Big Bang theory, quantum physics, or even string theory, then it would make sense. However, this text was created approximately 9,000 years ago, which is well before our current advanced scientific understanding. To place this passage at the beginning of the Cheon-Boo-Gyong, it requires at least some understanding of the current advanced sciences. Moreover, the subsequent passages that follow are even more unfathomable in terms of present-day science. Suk Samkuk, Mu Junbon, or Il Suk Samkuk, Mu Junbon. The reason why interpretations of the Cheon-Boo-Gyong vary in the market is primarily due to different definitions of numbers and secondly, the different ways of reading the 81 Chinese character words. First, let's interpret the form of Yishimushir, Soksangum Mujimbon. Beginning of the universe is a universe that starts from nothing. Although it divides into three poles, its fundamental nature remains eternal. Alternatively, it can be interpreted as follows: the beginning of the universe starts from nothing, and although the universe is divided into three poles, its fundamental nature remains eternal. Interpreting it this way creates a more natural connection in terms of the context between the preceding and following sentences. In the second phrase of the Cheon-Boo-Gyong, which is Soksangum Mujimbon, there may be some parts that are not easily understandable with a simple interpretation. Simply put, it may seem like divided into three poles, and the essence is endless. However, if expressed more smoothly as divided into three poles, yet its fundamental nature remains eternal, it can be easier to understand. In other words, the sky, earth, and humans all originate from the universe, which means they share the same source, but their fundamental forms are extremely different when separated. Additionally, each of them, the heavens, the earth, and humans, possesses its own unique essence and remains boundlessly eternal. However, you may have a question here. While it's easy to understand that the sky and earth are eternal, it might be difficult to accept that humans are also eternal. Is it really possible for humans to be eternal? First, let's examine the ambiguous meaning of the number 1 in the Cheon-Boo-Gyong. The number 1 can be interpreted as the universe in the context of the Cheon-Boo-Gyong, but depending on the sentence, it can also be interpreted as the sky. The first occurrence of the number 1 in the Cheon-Boo-Gyong clearly signifies the universe. In the second phrase of the Cheon-Boo-Gyong, which is Soksangum Mujimbon, there may be some parts that are not easily understandable with a simple interpretation. However, the following occurrence of the number 1 should be understood in the context as the meaning of the sky, considering the meaning of the word heaven in the context. In our current era, people tend to distinguish between the universe and the sky, but the Cheon-Boo-Gyong ultimately considers them to have the same meaning. In any case, the interpretation of this phrase is that ultimately, humans are also eternal like the universe, sky, and earth. And how humans can exist eternally will be explained in the next part, which follows in Ruya Manamane. Now, let's proceed to the third sentence. In this passage, while explaining the nature of the 3 poles mentioned earlier, it simultaneously describes how they came into existence. Here, the 3 poles refer to the heavens, the earth, and human. They all originated from one, meaning they originated from the same universe. If we analyze it slowly, the heavens, representing the universe or the number 1, came into existence first. The earth, representing the universe or the number 2, came into existence second. Finally, humans, representing the universe or the number 3, came into existence third. And now, the next sentence. In the phrase, the meaning of 10 represents everything or the sum of all things. For the sake of those expecting a detailed explanation of how the numbers in the Cheon-Boo-Gyong came into existence, I have deliberately omitted it in this current explanation. I plan to provide a thorough explanation of this aspect later on. For now, I will simply introduce the meanings, encapsulated by each number in the Cheon-Boo-Gyong, without delving into detailed explanations. The meanings of each number can be summarized as follows. 1 represents the universe, heavens. 2 represents the earth, the world, stars. 3 represents humans, living beings. 4 represents life, soul, spirit, energy. 5 represents the body, physical form. 6 represents this world. 7 represents the mind, intention, consciousness, emotions, autonomy. 8 represents human life, existence. 9 represents the afterlife, end, finality, death. 10 represents everything, entirety, union, completeness, perfected human, perfection. Therefore, the meaning of Cheon-Boo-Gyong is that the universe accumulates everything on a massive scale, but lacks a container to hold it, thus making it manifest in the form of humans. Literal translation would be, the universe accumulates, everything, gigantic, nothing, container, transforms, some, human. Even by interpreting it simply like this, the meaning would have been sufficiently conveyed. In the end, explaining this meaning, it signifies that the universe accumulates all the energies, originating from within itself in a vast manner, yet lacking a container. It ultimately gives birth to humans through those energies. Then, the methodology of how humans are brought into existence is connected to the following sentence. I will explain this part in the next session. Thank you very much.